Today on Commander Replay, I become the thing I hate as I check out this GoFundMe submitted Nekusar deck. Can Nekusar wheel its way to victory? Find out next on Commander Replay. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have one new Patreon supporter in Joseph Croxton. Joseph, you are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. Welcome back, everyone. Playing some Nekusar the Mindrazor today. And today's deck list comes to us from GoFundMe donor Valerie. And today's deck looks pretty strong, so I told opponents to bring some strong decks as well. Looks like a pretty tuned up Nekusar deck. Mana curve was pretty low, a lot of 2-drops, a handful of 3-drops, and we have... Yeah, we'll take a quick peek at it while we're talking about it. So yeah, a lot of 2-drops, a handful of 3-drops, and everything kind of tapers off nicely as you go up the curve. So should be a lot of consistency there. I'm not expecting to choke on mana too much as a result of that. Nekusar been a pretty good deck for quite a while. So anyway, that'll bring it to our turn 1. We draw into a Windfall. We'll play the island, and I think we'll pass the turn like that. Question is, do we Mystical Tutor? I don't know if we need to Mystical Tutor yet. I don't know. So I have not actually played a Nekusar deck before. I've faced them many, many times over the years. What I kind of noticed, Nekusar is very interesting in that... Oh, that's a lot of ramp for opponent. Anyway, Nekusar is very interesting in that it's the kind of deck that will punish weaker decks and punish you if you are a weaker deck builder. It's the type of deck that if you're not running a lot of interaction, Nekusar will punish you pretty hard. They'll cast Nekusar, they'll play a wheel, they'll do their thing. You'll lose a lot of life and you'll die real quick. So when I first started playing and doing the channel, Nekusar was everywhere, and it used to be so frustrating for me because it seemed like they would just cast Nekusar, do the thing, and I would die. As I became a better deck builder and realized that I needed to start running more removal, if you interact with the Nekusar deck, it's not nearly as strong as if you just let it go and do its thing. So yeah, if you are running a removal light deck, Nekusar can punish you pretty hard, if that is the case. So yeah, interesting little story on Nekusar, and yeah. I think I'm going to hold the Mystical Tutor for now. Don't know what we need just yet. Let's play the Mountain right here, play the Signet. Should actually read what this one does. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. That's interesting. I don't know if that's supposed to go on our commander or if that's like a piece of interaction for our opponent's stuff. Oh, that's a mana reflection for Golos. Now, and the interesting thing about Nekusar decks also is that... Ooh, there's a Soul Ring for opponent. Everyone ramping pretty hard. And some boots. Everyone ramping pretty hard. So one of the other interesting things about Nekusar is that it itself is not a deck that runs tons and tons of interaction, at least the ones that I've seen. I'll take a quick peek at this one. We've got Swan Song, there's a piece. I believe the Sigil of Sleep is for interacting with opponents. Arcane Denial, Cyclonic Rift, 3, 4 Counterspell, 6 with Dreadbore, 7 Void Shatter, Toxic Deluge, Hero's Downfall, Chaos Warp, Counterflux. Yeah, there's probably about 10 pieces in this deck, give or take. It's actually not too bad. Most of the Nekusar decks that I run into are actually far less than that. It's literally just like Nekusar wheels and other things that do Nekusar type stuff. Which, again, in a removal light meta is probably the way to go, but as people start interacting with you more, you may need to interact with them as well. So, anyway, that's going to bring it back to our turn. Opponent did lay down a Risen Reef before they passed. We've got 2 tap lands in hand. We're probably going to go for one of those this turn. Yeah, I think we'll get the Crumbling Necropolis right here. Make sure we've got black mana. I don't think there's that much else we need to be doing at the moment. Maybe we Mystical Tutor on the end step right here since we're not doing that much. Maybe we go for like a Commit to Memory, because then when we Windfall it, this is a discard, right? Yep. So then when we Windfall it, we'll have Commit to Memory in the graveyard, and then we can follow it up with that. That seems like a reasonable plan. Double check on Commit to Memory real quick. It's not a card that I play all the time, so... the first half is an instant. That is important. Put target non-land spell into its owner's library, second from the top. And then 6. Okay, yeah, we do the thing. Here comes Golos. Yep. Golos gonna get some lands. Hopefully someone else has interaction for that, because we don't really at the moment. Well, I guess we have the Crux of Fate. Do we Crux of Fate for that? Doesn't seem worth it. If other opponents cough out some stuff, maybe we Crux of Fate. But I really want to get a lot of value out of it. That mana reflection is going to make things awful. Sultai, probably the only one at the table that's really going to be able to deal with that mana reflection in any kind of sense. Although I guess we do have Cyclonic Rift. We could bounce it and wheel it, would be the way that you get rid of it. That's a thing to think about. Demonic Tutor for the Haunt of Hightower. Yep. We'll take a look at what our opponents are playing. So as we've been talking about, Champion of Thune piloting Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. Golos, sort of like the new Nekusar, I guess, doesn't plan to interact a whole lot, just kind of wants to solitaire a little bit and do its thing. And if that happens, they'll probably win the game pretty quickly. Now, there is a luck factor involved with that 7 mana ability. Sometimes you just whiff, which is nice, at least for your opponents, but yeah, some similarities to Nekusar. 5 mana and isn't looking to interact a whole lot, so yep. Next up, we have Banana piloting the Haunt of Hightower. They Demonic Tutor, and they get themselves a Bottomless Pit. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card at random. Gross. And Golos wants no part of that, so they're going to return to nature on the Bottomless Pit. Okie dokie. Saves one of our things from getting blown up. I'll take it. And then finally, we have Firemaker 282 piloting Yarok the Desecrated. Yarok, the double ETB commander. If you thought Muldrotha was a little bit too good, then you'll love Yarok, because it is also a little bit too good. I think I'm going to fire off the Mystical Tutor right now. I think I'm going to get the Commit to Memory. That way we have the double wheel thing happening. And Risen Reef will get double triggers. I hear that's a pretty good interaction in that deck. Tough choice on our turn. Crux of Fate or Nekusar. Do not know. Because Nekusar is also the type of deck that people like to interact with a lot. If our commander gets blown up after we cast it, it's basically like giving the turn away, and I don't love that. Though, I suppose... Ooh, we only have a single black. That's the thing to be careful of. Actually, we can't even Crux of Fate. We only have single black. Okay, so I guess we're playing Nekusar. Play the Shivan Reef. Cast our commander. Go on the old Hope It Survives plan. And that'll we'll pass to opponent's turn. They'll get a Mana Crypt flip. Winning all the flips so far. But we're finally going to get him for a little damage with Nekusar. Opponent cracks a fetch. Going to lose a little more life. Opponent can activate the Golos ability. They do have to filter through Cascading Cataracts, which means they can't do it twice. So that's at least a little bit lucky for us. Let's see what they hit. 3 lands. Excellent. There's the whiff we talked about, so game's not over yet. Opponent Anguished Unmaking on the Yarok. Nice. This is already more interaction than I've ever seen out of any Golos deck ever. 2. Cool. All right. Things shaping up. Haunt of Hightower may play a board wipe since, maybe less so now that Yarok's gone, but with 2 commanders in play, a board wipe isn't the worst thing I've ever heard of, so they could go for the nice tempo board wipe if they wanted. Ooh, one thing we should be careful of is if we wheel with the Haunt of Hightower in play, it's going to get massive. That's actually a pretty good foil to what our deck is trying to do. I didn't catch that earlier, but definitely a good reason to have this Commit to Memory around. Opponent going to cast the Haunt of Hightower. Yep. Oh, they got boots on it. Oh, that's bad. It's pretty bad for our wheels plan. They're going to swing into the Golos. Yep. And they'll have to discard a card. Nekusar triggers for the Yarok. Yeah, that is something to say about Nekusar, too, is that as much as it can win a game quickly, it can also help your opponents out a lot. Like, when I'm playing Boros and I see a Nekusar at the table, it makes me super happy now, because I know I'm running enough interaction to slow them down. It's going to give me extra card draw, and you give Boros like 2 or 3 extra cards, and you can really go wild sometimes. And then finally, the Nekusar ability is also going to make people's life totals lower, so I don't have to attack for as much when I am playing Boros. So like I said, Nekusar, a commander that I used to hate facing and have gradually turned the corner on over time for a variety of reasons. I think one of the other things, too, about that is that, like, there's just stronger things than Nekusar now. Like, for a while, Nekusar was not at the very top, but it was definitely toward the top end. And now there's just so many things that are so much worse than Nekusar. Opponent cracks a fetch, puts a trigger on the Haunt of Hightower. I wish we had a way to protect ourselves from the Haunt, because if we wheel and everyone discards... How big is it actually going to get? Is it going to get Commander lethal? That's 7, 8. It's going to get about 14 or 15 power. It's going to be right on the border of Commander lethal. Yeah, that's probably a little bit too good. I guess we'll do the math once everything's done. Opponent's going to recast their commander, so still 7 cards in hand. Going to get some draws, I think, with the Risen Reef. Nope, opponent discards down to hand size. A little more power on the Haunt of Hightower. Up to 6 power. Maybe I should have just went for the Rift with the Tutor. So going to bring it back to our turn, get some Nekusar triggers on ourselves. Alright, that doesn't deal damage to us. It only deals damage to opponents. Nice. We draw 2 lands. Not exactly what I was looking for. We do need double black, so let's play the Mana Confluence. I guess we could play the Sigil of Sleep. Oh no, the target, the boots protect Haunt from the targeting. I know what we can do. We can end step commit. Maybe it's just, maybe we just Crux Fate. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see how many cards we get discarded if we windfall. That'd be 7 plus R5. That's 12 power plus 1 more. is 13. That's plus 13 on the Haunt of Hightower, which would give it 19 power, and when it attacks, it'll have 20 power. That is really close to Commander Lethal. Plus the fact that we're giving up our board wipe, particularly good one at that, because you really don't want to try to Toxic Deluge a 2020 Haunt of Hightower. I think we're going to sit and just chill with this Commit to Memory, and maybe try to do some end step kind of stuff. You know what? Everyone's commander's in play. I'm just going to blow up the board. We could, like, try to play around a lot of stuff. You know, everyone's going to get set back quite a bit if we just do this, so. Play the Crux of Fate. No one really had open mana either, so, you know, not worried about, like, Heroic Intervention, Boros Charmy kind of stuff. So, yeah, we'll blow the board up and try to set up again next turn. Banana said he calls his deck Halloweeny, by the way. I don't know what that means, but at some point maybe we'll see. Here comes Golos back to play. Yep. Get themselves another land. Ooh, Cabal Coffer stayed exiled. Nice. That's a good one. That is a really big source of additional mana in that deck. So that's a bit of a loss for opponent. Oh, they're going to go for a Glacial Chasm. I don't know how we beat that. Non-land permanent? Is it non-land? Non-land permanent makes me sad. We got a Chaos Warp, I think. Let's take a look. We've got Incendiary Command. That'll get rid of it. So far, Chaos Warp and Incendiary Command. Let's see if we have a Strip Mine. There's a Ghost Quarter, Scavenger Ground. Okay, so we have a couple options. We don't have tons and tons, but we are black, so we could always run into a tutor at some point. Oh, hey, that's a Bringer of the Blue Dawn. Gross. With that stuff in play, if the black player has a board wipe, they may play it right here. I know I would. For a Bringer, yeah. There's the Urborg. Everything makes black mana now, so our black mana problem's getting solved a bit. There's a Twilight Prophet, not the board wipe we were hoping on. Opponent's gonna put some boots on it, yep. Ooh, opponent's gonna fire a Hymn to Turak at us. Leave us with at least one wheel. Nope, hits both. Actually, no, it's okay. Okay. So, memory goes into the graveyard. We can cast it from the graveyard, so it could be worse. It could be worse. Did want that Windfall, though. Windfall's a nice and cheap wheel. Twilight Prophet into the Yarok opponent. Does have some boots on it. Yeah, and that's maybe one thing I don't love about the Nekusar game plan a little bit is that two of our opponents are pretty low on cards, and like if we play Nekusar, they're going to get more cards. It comes at the cost of life, which is cool, but they're not really in danger of dying at this moment, and giving them extra cards is a bit scary, so running your opponents out of cards in hand is a good way to win a game, so. We'll see if Yarok's got a board wipe. Good candidates on board for the board wiping. Here comes a Hedron Crab. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I suppose with double triggers, it could kill someone. Oh, that's an Altar of the Brood. Really, they really got some mill going. I wonder if there's an infinite mill combo. Hedron Crab, Landfall, Altar of the Brood. Altar of the Brood is not targeted. Hedron Crab is. Let's see where they want to point things. Hedron Crab at the Golos. Sure. We'll auto some of these triggers. We lost a Rakdos Signet. It's fine. Be nice to have, but doesn't sway me one way or the other. And there's a Growth Spiral for opponent, sure. In all likelihood, we're just on Cast our Commander, unless we draw something like a Cyclonic Rift. But fully expect that we'll probably just be recasting Nekusar. We lose Mystic Remora. That one I would have cast, actually. And here comes a Wayward Swordtooth. Sure. Lose a land. No big deal. So, opponent's got a Temple of the False God in their graveyard, and I told them I was shaking my head at them because in a mono black deck, the amount of swamps you run matter because of the Urborg and Cabal Coffers bit. I would definitely not run a Temple of the False God. If you're running colorless lands in mono black with the Cabal Coffers, they need to be really good colorless lands. It's probably going to be things like Strip Mine, you know, effects that you don't have great access to otherwise, because your swamp count really does matter when you're playing mono black. We lose a couple good things. We lose a Toxic Deluge, Limdol's Vault, Factor Fiction, and a Niv Mizzet Perron into our graveyard. So it looks like opponent's trying to do like a land mill kind of thing. It's pretty interesting. We draw into a Talisman. Don't think we have the mana for that and our commander this turn. Yeah, 7 mana just going to get us our commander, so that's what we're going to be doing. Oh, I forgot to use the, I forgot with Urborg, you can tap Mana Confluence without losing life. Forgot to use that mode. Oops. At least we'll get opponent for some life loss with the Bringer. They do have, oh, is that all damage? No, it's all damage. Ah. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Yep. Makes me sad. Opponent did point out that with all the milling going on, Haunt of Hightower would be insane on the board. So that's a thing that we're going to want to watch out for. Opponent does have to pay 2 life into the Glacial Chasm, though. Feel much better if we could get rid of it. Opponent goes up to 6 cards in hand. Blah. A lot of things to do with double mana, a commander, and 6 cards in hand. think opponent's going to get 2 Golos activations right here. They exile a Time Twister. Okay, well, people are going to be losing life if they Time Twister. Down for that. Also, we'll get our things in our graveyard back to our hand, or back to our library, rather, which is important. These are some things that I would like to have access to at some point, so... You get a Bloom Tender into play. Yep. Opponent's got a Vesuva. Let's see what they copy. Copying the Cascading Cataracts. Okay. Really want to be sure they can filter their mana the correct way. Ooh, Ashiok, no! Yep, Ashiok, a little bit OP. Gonna use the ability, and we all exile our graveyards. Graveyard's gone away. So, I mean, the focus is probably going to be on Golos now. Here comes that Time Twister. Yup. Nobody getting their graveyards back. Whole bunch of Nekusar triggers going on the stack. Opponent's going to be losing some life. We do get some interesting things. We got 2 counter spells. What's this one do? Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them in the hand, and the rest in the bottom. What is that, Treasure Cruise without the delve, essentially? And then Leyline of the Void. Not terrible. Especially if opponent's doing mill. We can Leyline everything. Also, Crucible of Worlds is a popular inclusion with the Golos lands deck. At some point, you want to sacrifice and recast Glacial Chasm because the life loss gets really large. So you can't do that if Leyline's in play. So our next turn, so far, based on what we have right now, our next turn is probably looking like Leyline, sit on a counter. Also, I think, does Leyline shut off Haunt of Hightower? I think it does. Yeah, because it has to go to the graveyard. With Leyline, it can't. Another Golos activation. Oh, that's a Narset. Narset's so bad for what we're doing. So bad. And a Rhystic Study. Gross. Gross. Opponent can use the Narset ability. Yep. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Yup. Now we're on the Fine Cyclonic Rift plan. Path to Exile on... Doesn't look like it's targeting any of our stuff. Hedron Crab, maybe? I didn't see what the Path to Exile targeted. Oh, Wayward Swordtooth. Okay, so Wayward Swordtooth down. Opponent gets a land. Then they once again get hit by the Hedron Crab and Altar of the Brood triggers. Oh, and opponent's going to 2-mana Cyclonic Rift our Nekusar. Oh, that hurts tempo-wise. That really hurts tempo-wise. Although, we are firmly not the threat right now. So, if opponents have anything, I think they're going to be firing it in the direction of that Golos player. Twilight Prophet is life loss, so that brings Golos down to 22. Down for that. Also notably, Twilight Prophet has flying. So, it can fly over and start hitting some of these planeswalkers. Haunt of Hightower, same idea. Here comes a Mana Vault for the Haunt opponent. Yep. Rhystic Study will trigger. Once we play an Expedition map, crack the map, get coffers. Oh, they revealed a Feast and Famine with the Twilight Prophet ability. That's going to give them a lot of mana. I don't think they're coming our way. Problem, though, is that means you need to hit the player to get the Feast and Famine trigger. You can't go after the Planeswalkers. Opponent goes for a Nykthos, not the coffers. Interesting. They lose coffers? No. Strange. Oh, actually, you know what? Sword of Feast and Famine will not get them because the damage would be prevented. Yep. Really hoping Sultai drew some removal. The one thing we're really hurting on right now is mana ramp. We haven't ramped quite the way we need to. We did lose that Signet earlier to the milling, and in retrospect, we probably could have used that. Here comes a Painful Quandary for opponent. This is actually a really interesting card. Now, everyone's got full hands because of the wheel, but once they run out of stuff, then Painful Quandary is gonna really make some painful quandaries for our opponents. It is a super annoying card to try and play around. Here comes Arguel's Bloodfast for the Haunt of Hightower opponent. I totally would have played a Feast and Famine that turn. Okay, I guess opponent wants to go after the Narset. Yeah, that seems like probably a pretty good idea. It's not going to take it down, though. It's still going to be on 1. So Narset down to 1 loyalty. Almost means that, like, Nekusar is not that great to recast, honestly. Maybe we go Dawn from Dreams instead. Decent number of things. That's a Gear Hulk. That's a start. Painful Quandary will trigger. A Rhystic Study will trigger. Opponent said they can kill Ashiok on their turn. Here's the Altar of the Brood trigger. Gear Hulk on Bringer, so Bringer going to go down. Opponent gains some life, which will, it's going to be a pretty good game against what our deck's trying to do, assuming we don't just, like, lose to the Golos, which, you know, very real possibility. Hedron on Altar triggers. Azusa into the graveyard. Heroic Intervention down, that's a good one. Swan Song down, also a good one. Oh, that's a Casualties of War! Oh my god. Wow, nice. So, oh, they didn't go for Glacial Chasm, though. I guess Glacial Chasm's on a bunch of life loss. They're going for the Cascading Cataracts, Ashiok, Mana Reflection, and Golos. That is huge. Nice. Ramunap Excavator into the Narset. See if opponent wants to put a Bloom Tender in front of it. Don't know if they will. Oh, they will. All right. I think we're definitely on Leyline of the Void, though. It's going to bring it back to our turn. There's a mission briefing. Surveil 2, then choose an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. You may cast that this turn. If we put it to your turn, exile it. With all the mill going on, that's a reasonable one to have around. Don't think we need it just yet, so I really do want to get the ley line into play. Let's play this... What are we playing? We're getting the Watery Grave? There's an Herb Organ play. I don't think we need Watery Grave. Play an island. So let's get a ley line of the void into play. Painful Quandary will trigger. We'll just discard a land. Opponent's doubled mana is gone, so I'm like not as worried about Rhystic Study anymore. So, and the 2 mana is relevant, so we're gonna discard a card. We'll discard the Watery Grave. Not gonna pay. Yeah, and then we'll just sit on 2 counterspells. Mission Briefing if we need to. Glacial Chasm and Mana Crypt triggers for our opponent. Oh, opponent's gonna go Merciless Eviction, exile all enchantments. Well, nope. Who did that hit? That hits Painful Quandary, Arguels, and our Leyline. I think Leyline's too important, honestly. Give that the old counterspell. Looks like we're gonna have to discard to the Painful Quandary, or pay 5 life. I think we'll pay the 5 life right here. We're at 35. We can go to 30. Golos is down to 18. Oh, Golos is gonna return to nature on our Leyline of the Void. I think that means we're gonna Arcane Denial the return to nature. What are we doing right here? Are we discarding again, or are we really need that land? I think we're going down to 25. We got the counterspell battle going. Opponent's gonna Vampiric Tutor. Ooh, another Painful Quandary trigger. I guess they have such a big hand though, they can just discard. Oh, and there's a Rhystic Study. Okay. Yeah, so they'll be able to draw the thing that they tutor for. They will lose 2 more life though. So if they go for a counterspell, that one doesn't make blue, so it might have to be like an Arcane Denial itself. We're out of mana for the Rhystic Study. You probably go for a counterspell on our counterspell to make the Merciless Eviction resolve, is probably what you do. No, they don't do it. They do tutor for something, though. So Leyline sticks around. Opponent gonna go for a Sylvan Library. It's a lot of life loss. Arcane Denial will trigger. Also a Twilight Prophet trigger. We draw a Counterflux. Could be helpful. Oh, opponent reveals an Oppression. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player discards a card. Gross. I would counter that if I had a way to do it. Golos down to 13. Pretty soon they're going to have to think about letting this Glacial Chasm go. Which means we're probably on Nekusar this turn. Nekusar Counterflux is probably the plan. Haunt of Hightower is quietly back up to 39 life. All the Twilight triggers. Yeah, those are pretty good. We're unfortunately wide open to this Feast and Famine. So move the boots over to a Spirit. Sword onto the Twilight Prophet. Boots back to the Twilight Prophet. Let's see if they remember all the stuff, because if they swing into Golos, the damage will get prevented. If they swing into the Planeswalker, it won't trigger the sword. Here comes the Oppression, and Rhystic Study will trigger. So it's going to be discard 2 every time we cast a spell. Gross. Twilight Prophet into the Yarok opponent. Spirit into the Narset, and 1 Spirit into us. Works for me. That's about as good as we could have hoped it would go. Sword of Feast and Famine will trigger. Opponent's going to get a lot more mana. They still got 4 cards in hand. Yup. Oppression will hit them a little bit too, though. Opponent discarded a Sky Shroud Claim into exile. Opponent casts a Sign in Blood. You'll lose a little bit of life. Oppression will trigger. Rhystic Study will trigger. Opponent's going to draw a card with the Arguel's Bloodfast. Yep. Do it again. Puts themselves down to 33. At least they're not at 40 anymore, but they are getting themselves extra cards. Reason to get Nekusar into play. And they'll tap out. Here comes an Avenger of Zendikar. That's exactly the thing that I was not hoping for, but yep. Painful Quandary and Oppression will trigger. Also Rhystic Study. Muldrotha into exile. Nice. Down for that. Anytime you can get rid of one of those. Also, that card's climbed up to $8 in paper. Didn't even notice that. Oop, that's an Altar of the Brood, plus an Avenger of Zendikar. That's going to be a lot of mail on everyone. Do we have Devastation Tide in this deck? If we could Mission Briefing into a Devastation Tide, that would not be the worst thing I've ever seen. Altar of the Brood's going to trigger a bunch of times. Everyone's going to be doing a lot of mailing. Winds of Change goes into the graveyard. Painful Truths. Swan Song. Diabolic Tutor. There's the Chaos Warp that we need. Yarok opponent all the way down to 10, which means if we cast Nekusar, and depending on what Twilight Prophet hits, they could be in a position to take them out next turn. Opponent sending all available attackers into the Haunt of Hightower opponent. Sounds good for me. Looks like it's going to be about 8 damage coming in their way. Puts them down to 25. That's a hero's downfall. These tokens are still O1s. That's a thing to think about. Unfortunately, Lightning Greaves and Sword of Feast and Famine a bit of a problem for us. We're going to have to discard 2 cards when we play something. It's going to be pretty rough, but play the island, play Nekusar. Rhystic Study will trigger. So we need to discard a card. I think it's going to be the Dawn from Dreams. Do we pay 5 life into the Painful Quandary? Wow. Shooting an Avenger is a good way to survive. I think we discard the Counterflux. I'm going to discard the Counterflux. So we can mission briefing for a counterspell if we need to, or we can Hero's Downfall, whatever seems to make the most sense at the time. Golos down to 35 cards in library. Nice. Getting down there. We still got 53. Haunt at 47. Cumulative upkeep trigger on the Glacial Chasm. Let's see what opponent wants to do. They let it go. So Glacial Chasm into exile. They are open for business. Sylvan Library trigger, Nekusar. Nekusar should get them nicely with the Sylvan Library. Yep, 2 more Nekusar triggers. Down to 9 they go. Does opponent have the Rift? Opponent's going to give us the Spirit. I'll take a blocker. Oh, Zakama? Oh, destroys artifacts and enchantments. I mean, I feel like we probably need to let that go, honestly. Like, I don't know how we get through Oppression and Painful Quandary. And yeah, I guess we've got the Hero's Downfall. I assume that opponent is going to try to get rid of these artifacts and enchantments. They probably also should have their eyes on this Avenger. Nekusar is like the last threat in the pecking order, in my opinion. I'm going to let it go. We've got the Hero's Downfall, so hopefully we can get what we want out of the deal, which is these enchantments getting blown up. And then we can just Hero's Downfall the Zakama before their next turn. And we may lose our commander in this, but we'll see. We'll see. I can tell you right now that we definitely can't take both Yarok and Haunt of Hightower in our current situation with these cards in play. So yeah, gonna get started on the Painful Quandary. Painful Quandary down. You probably wait a second on the Oppression, honestly, because it does affect them as well. Oh, opponent's gonna go for an Aetherflux Reservoir. I think it's okay. Oppression's still in play. Kind of want to hang on to my cards as best that I can. Don't think they're about to combo off. Now, if we see the other half of the combo, sure, we'll counter it, but also, this will attract attention their way, so I'm all about them attracting attention to themselves. And, yeah. Opponent's going to Anguish Unmaking on the Leyline of the Void. Meh, that's fine. They will have to discard a card first. Leyline did some work, exiled some good stuff. I don't actually know how Golos wins at this point. You know, what's weird is we've seen a big chunk of their deck. We haven't actually seen that many big things in their deck yet. Zakama is the only real, like, big threat that we've seen. Would have expected to have seen more of them with only 33 cards left in the deck, so who knows. Maybe a bunch of Eldrazi or other things lurking in the last 33 cards. Opponent loses some life to the Anguish Unmaking down to 9. They may just end up getting themselves killed. We really need like a Wheel of Fortune, Time Twister. We need a Wheel Effect ourselves. We don't have any great ones. Winds of Change is not amazing with only a couple cards in hand. We may need to Mission Briefing for the Dawn of Dreams just to try to dig a little. But that's a sorcery. Won't be able to do it till our next turn. Haunt of Hightower is going to have some interesting choices. They can potentially kill at least one player, maybe two. Maybe two. Ooh, opponent does have a fetch land for the Avenger of Zendikar. I didn't catch that. So even if we try to shoot the Avenger, we'd have to shoot the Avenger in response to the crack. We'll see how awake everyone is at the table. Nekusar triggers for the Haunt of Hightower. Also a Mana Vault trigger. Start ticking down that life total. They reveal a Swamp with the Twilight Prophet. I mean, I'm really going to do my best to not cast anything right here. We need both of these cards, I feel like. Both of these cards are involved in us winning the game. But then there's also not losing the game to this Avenger, which is a very real thing. Opponent's going to play a Cryptghast, and Oppression and Rhystic Study will trigger. Notably, Zakama only has 2 mana up. They don't have a 3rd mana open to shoot anything else. If it were me personally, I don't know if I go for Aetherflux right there. I'd probably just try to Zakama everything to death. So, Cryptghast in. Opponent does not have doubled mana. I think they still have a Nykthos. Oh no, Nykthos is in the graveyard. So, Nykthos gone. Oh wait, did they get a Swamp with the Expedition map? I don't know. Maybe I messed up that Expedition map call. Here comes a Liliana Vess. Cryptghast, Oppression, Rhystic Study will trigger. Rhystic Study, Nekusar. Nekusar hits the Golos player one time. Winds of, depending on how many cards each player plays, Winds of Change actually looking a little bit better. Still not exactly the one we need. Check our graveyard for things that help us. A lot of counter spells. One of discards, Awaken the Erstwhile. That's a new one on me. Each player discards all the cards in their hand, then creates that many zombies. Weird. So yeah, it firmly looks like a discard deck. Here comes Liliana Vess finally in. Oh, Grey Merchant. Grey Merchant will kill 2 players, is what it'll do. Okay. Okay. This is going to be tough. Find out who's got anything to stop a Grey Merchant. If either player has a counter, we will definitely see it. Maybe, do we counter Gray Merchant? Because it's time to get political. So I messaged our opponent, said, can I get a no attacksies if I counter this? So I think we're countering it because I don't think we can take Haunt of Hightower 1 versus 1 right here. So we are going to mission briefing. Not going to pay for the Rhystic Study. We're going to have to discard the only card in our hand. Makes me sad. Hero's Downfall down. We have a Curiosity and a Mind Stone. Curiosity is probably really good on Nekusar, right? Yeah. Yeah, it seems pretty good. How badly do we need a Mind Stone? Probably not that badly. Put that one into the graveyard. Curiosity on top. Then we're going to get... thinking Arcane Denial, because I kind of want the extra card draw. Arcane Denial on the Gray Merchant. Go for the no life loss on the mana Confluence. Cannot pay for the Rhystic Study. In all likelihood, if we could just cast things and not pay for the Rhystic Study, and that'll take care of the Golos player. This is gonna be yeah. Yep, Twilight Prophet coming our way. We definitely earned that one. No flying on this spirit, so we're gonna take the hit right here. Sword Trigger. Yup. Opponent gets to untap. We have no cards to discard. They only have one card in hand, but they can draw some life with the Bloodfast. Oh, and they can Liliana. All right, yeah, I see what's going on now. Well, they would still do that anyway, even if we didn't counter the thing. So we would just be at a lower life total, and we too would probably also be dead. So, yeah, I think countering it was the right call. But Liliana can definitely grab a board wipe right here, or some kind of removal for the Avenger. Feast and Famine is so good in mono black decks. Done some crazy things with it. I mean, it's good in just about every deck, but really done some crazy things with it. Opponent gets a Nekusar trigger off the card draw, so they're going 3 life a card now on the Sargul's Bloodfast. They're going to try to animate dead on the Gray Merchant. That I do not have an answer for. Oh yeah, this is going to be like 9. This is going to be a lot. We have a mountain to climb on our turn. Opponent's going to crack the fetch. Okay. Hope they got something. Although the Gray Merchant trigger's already on the stack, so I think it's for a green deck, it's probably too late. Maybe just going for the altar trigger right there. I don't know. Hedron Crab. Get some last milling in. 2 players going down to the Gray Merchant. Opponent's up to 61. We're at 3. Oh, this is a mountain. I don't know that we have the tools to necessarily deal with this. Arcane Denial will trigger. It'll get us a little bit of extra card draw. We would need to daisy chain a lot of wheels back and forth. Our Curiosity got milled. Well, I don't know that one gets us out of it. We're going to lose some life to the Nekusar. Oh, another land, that hurts. We need a wheel. We need a wheel. 3 lands. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Yep, down we go. Yep, that's gonna be the game. Opponent gonna draw like crazy. Yep. Hero's Downfall on the Nekusar. Yep. Twilight trigger, Mana Vault trigger. Might just die to the Twilight. And we do. Down we go. Anything good coming? Blasphemous Act? One more card. Blasphemous Act would have been helpful. We blow up all that stuff. Have to recast our commander at some point. Yeah. Good things were close. Good things were close. Just couldn't quite get to them. Oh, it makes me sad. I was really hoping to get the win right there, but even tried to politic our way to it. But yeah, black decks, the ability to just like tutor the thing you need, draw into it, grab it, reanimate a Gray Merchant is super problematic. And one reason that keeping the Leyline around would have been good because it would have stopped that Gray Merchant play right there. Yeah, it makes me sad. So, you know, we did our best. I think one of the problems this game is just our commander wasn't in play long enough. We got bounced or something somewhere in the middle part of the game. Also, awkward sequencing at the beginning where I played the commander and then we just had to board wipe the next turn. That's probably not the way you want to go, so that probably hurts a bit as well. But yeah, we just weren't able to keep our commander into play, and this is definitely a commander-centric deck. So that does hurt a bit. As far as changes that I would make to this deck, 100% not a Nekusar expert, but just from what I was feeling from playing the deck. And one thing to consider too is that we were playing against some pretty good decks. I mean, not that they're like the craziest things ever, but like these were very solid opponents. If you're playing this Nekusar deck somewhere, these are probably similar to the type of things that you might run into. Now, I don't know Valerie's meta specifically, but you know, when you run into better decks, you just run into good things that cause problems. And sometimes when that happens, bad things will happen and you just won't have your commander in play the way you need it to. So that's kind of what happened to us right here. Taking a look at the deck, one thing I was missing pretty hard was mana ramp. We had 1 Signet in play, and I feel like we wanted more than that. I would probably add a Worn Power Stone and a Thran Dynamo. Maybe even a Hedron Archive, one or the other. You are trying to find specific things in this deck, so Hedron Archive, you could probably go the Hedron Archive route. Hedron Archive is also cheaper. Oh, Hedron Archive's already in there, never mind. So I would add Thran Dynamo, Worn Power Stone, probably cut down just a little bit on the 2-mana rocks. The 2-mana rocks are great, like, don't get me wrong, but ramping for 1 is really good in super fast metas. If the game's going to go just a little bit longer, like 8 to 10 turns, then, you know, ramping for 2 or 3 is really good. So I would probably cut back just a teeny bit on the 2-mana rocks, because like we saw in that game, we played a Signet, but it didn't matter compared to our opponents like Soul Rings and Mana Vaults and Mana Doubling and this and that. So we were definitely behind on mana production, and it really handcuffed the amount of things that we could do. Later in the game, if we could have used the 4-mana thing that lets us look at 2 cards, that may have gotten us somewhere useful. We don't know. That would all be a product of having better mana. One thing to think about too, you're a deck that can draw extra cards and you're a Wheels deck. Walking Atlas, because you're probably going to have more lands in hand than you can actually play at any given time. So Walking Atlas is a card to think about in this style of deck. Because you're going to get those lands in, and like I've talked about in other videos, people tend not to attack mana bases. That's not a thing that they normally do, so your lands are going to be very, very safe. Much safer than running a bunch of artifacts out there. So that's step 1. I did actually feel like we were maybe a little bit short-handed on wheels. There's 1 wheel. We got 2, that's like a partial 1, right? Yeah. I feel like maybe the wheel count in this deck could probably go up 1 or 2. 2 of the big ones that are missing are Wheel of Fortune and Time Twister. Time Twister, obviously, well, both of those cards are expensive. They're in different categories of expensive, but if your group is okay with proxies, I would proxy up a Time Twister. I don't know if you compete or play events at all with this deck. If you do, then obviously Time Twister not going to work, but Wheel of Fortune, it's still expensive. I get it. If you can get a Wheel of Fortune, obviously it's a huge power up for this deck. There just isn't another card that does the same thing with the efficiency that Wheel of Fortune does. But yeah, I really feel like I was missing a wheel, and maybe we just drew into some bad luck, but we did see a pretty good chunk of the deck right there with all the mill and everything, and we just didn't really catch a wheel the way we needed to. And again, maybe that's some of that our commander didn't stay in play at all. I guess maybe 2 Vampiric Tutor. I know that's another expensive one. What are they? I think they're like 40. Vampiric Tutor is another expensive one, but it does help when you're trying to find a specific piece. In the meantime, you could probably go, again, depending on how fast your meta is, the curve is lower in this deck, so that tells me that it might be a bit faster. But you could go for like a Diabolic Tutor, or what's that new one? What's the Spell Mastery one? Dark Petition is probably actually a pretty good pickup, because there's probably going to be some stuff in your graveyard, so you should be able to get the mana back. I'd probably add a Dark Petition to the deck, and maybe that works in lieu of another wheel. You can find whatever you need instead. I wasn't sure about the Sigil of Sleep. It looks like it's just interaction for opponents. I didn't see any combos in our deck that this works with, so instead of that, I would probably just use like a Pongify or a Rapid Hybridize. So let's bring in a Pongify, bring in a Rapid Hybridization. You could also go for Reality Shift, but I did notice that the 2 converted mana cost slot has a lot of stuff in it, so the 1 mana might be relevant. So I'll probably bring those things in. Might go down a counterspell, maybe. I don't know if it was just the case that we drew all of our counterspells and like not wheels, which was maybe the issue, but how many counterspells are actually in this deck? Let's find out. Nah, okay, so it's not like there's tons and tons of counterspells in the deck. It's just that we drew into all of them, is what happened. So that's just bad running on our part. So yeah, 4 counterspells, that seems about right. That seems like a totally normal amount, in my opinion. I'm not seeing a combo piece for Mind Over Matter. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe it just uses a value piece if you have a lot of cards in hand, potentially. I don't know. I guess that could be a thing. Silent Arbiter, interesting choice. Tells me that there's probably some creature combat in the meta. Can definitely be effective if you're needing to stop a big army from attacking you. So that is a thing to think about. Maybe a card you think about, again, depends on how fast things are in the meta, is Thaumatic Compass. It makes sure you hit your land drops, and also flips into Spires, which gives you a lot of protection from things that want to be aggressive. So that's a card to think about. Not necessarily a must-have, but it's just a card that I really like. I'm going to skip it for now, just to try to get this deck back down to 100. Oh, one thing too. I see this Shenanigans right here. Sweet card. This deck could probably use a Vandal Blast. If opponents go like really heavy mana rocks early in the game, which was kind of a thing that happened in this game, it is tough for us to compete with that, so maybe you want to think about a Vandal Blast, but On the other hand, are you actually going to spend 5 mana to use it? I don't know. Actually, maybe a case for Meltdown. And again, this all depends on meta. If you're playing this against decks that are trying to mana rock like crazy, Meltdown could be a card if someone does does like Soul Ring into Signet turn 1, and you're just like, wow, I need to catch up somehow, I need to slow them down. Meltdown is a card that you could think about. Obviously, you want to be careful of your own Signets, but like I said, but we also did cut down the number of those a little bit. Not super cheap, but another thing that I think would help this deck a lot is just Mana Vault. Like I said, I really felt like we were behind on mana all game, and maybe it's we didn't draw enough of the Signets that we needed to, but at some point we could have just used a little boost of mana. Mana Vault is a reasonable way to get yourself there, but maybe with the Worn Power Stone, Thran Dynamo, that sort of stuff, that helps as well. I'm not sure. With all the Signets, you could also just think about like a Solemn Simulacrum, since enough of the time you'll be able to get to 4 mana on turn 3. With all of those, so maybe Solemn Simulacrum is a thing you think about. But yeah, like I said, I felt like we needed to ramp a little bit better. We missed the Cabal Ritual. We didn't see the Dark Ritual. Yeah, I guess actually, Dark Ritual, Mana Vault, pretty much the same thing. Just that Dark Ritual, you don't have to continually lose life throughout the game. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we just didn't run the best. I don't know. Maybe I kept a shaky opening hand. Maybe it's our commander didn't stay in play. Don't know. All in all, I think the deck's in pretty good shape. I think just a few small tweaks here and there. And again, it also just depends on the meta that you're playing in. I don't know what that looks like specifically. So Devastation Tide could be a card to think about. This is essentially like a Grixis combo deck is the way it plays. And I've seen many a blue combo deck use Devastation Tide to great effect to not... Like what Golos had going on early in the game, they just had a ton of permanents in play. You can buy yourself an extra turn that way. Another thing to think about if there's a lot of attacking in your meta is Aetherize and Aether Spouts. These things are just massive blowouts to the people attacking, and they hurt real bad. They can make a player lose a game in a hurry. What else do we need to get rid of? Check how much ramp we got. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10... 11, 12, 13. 13's a bit of ramp. 13's pretty good. Maybe it might be true that Gilded Lotus is potentially too slow. Gilded Lotus competes with your commander, mana cost-wise. I know Gilded Lotus can certainly be very effective. I don't know if it's necessarily right for this deck. Keep an eye on it. If you find Gilded Lotus competing with Nekusar just a little bit too much to cast in that 5 mana slot, you can think about cutting it. But if it's working just fine for you, you can also leave it. So, yeah. All right, we got to cut some stuff, get back down to 100. What are we cutting? Let us cut. I have questions about Temple Bell. I wonder how good Temple Bell actually is. I mean, yeah, if Nekusar is in play, you get a little extra damage. You get yourself some extra cards too. It seems okay. Don't know if it's blowing me away, but again, I haven't seen it. Here's a spicy one. I haven't seen this one. Nightmare Unmaking. Choose one. Exile each creature with power greater than the number of cards in your hand, or exile each creature with power less than the number of cards in your hand. Yeah, you can do some one-sided board wipe action with that. Could be useful. Yeah, with the Temple Bell, I think I'm going to cut the Temple Bell. Again, the longer a game goes, the better Temple Bell is, especially with Nekusar. If your meta's pretty quick, Temple Bell could be a bit slow. But you'll have to use your judgment there, and, again, I'm just trying to get back down to probably cut the Cabal Ritual just for this exercise, based on the cards that I've added to the deck. Certainly plenty of reasons why you could keep it in. Great card. We got to cut from somewhere, so deciding to cut that for now. At some point, you need something other than rituals and mana rocks. So what I say, about 13 pieces of ramp. So brings us down to about 12, which feels pretty good. The big difference, though, is that now we have more cards that ramp us multiple mana, and multiple mana ramp is actually really important. I think that does get overlooked sometimes. Again, meta dependent. Super fast metas, not as much. But if the game's going to go at least 8 turns or so, then Worn Power Stone, Thran Dynamo looking pretty good in those. Also Hidden Archive. Other than that, I like the deck. I thought it played pretty well. I think we just got hit with a little bit of bad luck and just couldn't protect ourselves the right way. Also might be a recipe for some Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves would have helped us out somewhere just to keep Nekusar nice and safe. Also, if you're trying to get one of these Niv-Mizzets in, although if you're trying to get Curiosity on Niv-Mizzet, there's not a lot of creatures in the deck, so it might be hard to move the boots. Swiftfoot boots, maybe. Something to protect the commander might not be a terrible idea. But anyway, yeah, to me, it's looking pretty good. I think just a few small little tweaks here and there, maybe changing the balance of things around, just changing some of the numbers, how much removal versus how many wheels versus how much ramp, just kind of getting that mixture just right. But anyway, yeah, I want to thank Valerie for sending me this deck, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.